Kia ora, I'm Rory McCourt. I'm the Welfare Vice President at WWEA, the Victoria University of Wellington Student Association. WWEA, we have 13,500 members, and we've come out fairly okay from the national and ACT government's voluntary student membership. We've managed to survive, and we're making some changes that make sure we can be around for the future. And I want to talk today about why it's so important that we do survive, and some of the changes that are happening to students on the front line. Some of the changes that they're undergoing and some of the effects of what recent policy has done. So recently the National Party's budget, the government's budget, made some big changes to student finance. So students will no longer have access to student allowances for their masters past 4 years. There's a cap on that now, plus a higher repayment rate for when they do graduate, meaning that students stay in poverty for longer. A recent NZUSA study found that 25% of students are in poverty, and this is chronic poverty. They can't afford to come to university with full stomachs, let alone to concentrate on their study and to get good grades. 54,000 New Zealanders are leaving for Australia every year, and an increasing number are students. They can travel to Australia with comparable fees, but higher wages when they do part-time work. And they can make sure that they have a job when they come out of studying. This doesn't happen in New Zealand. Our students' prospects are bleak, and that's if they can get into university because of the barriers that have been put up to tertiary education. We were told that students should feel lucky that they came out of the budget as well off as they did. That if it was really bad, they would be rioting in the streets like Greeks. But because we took it to some degree, the government thinks that it's not a problem and that our students aren't suffering. They are. Students do acknowledge that they are the lucky ones to go to university and to be given a chance at upskilling and getting a high wage when they come out of it. They are lucky in those respects, but not because the government isn't cutting deeper, but it's because they are lucky compared to those New Zealanders who have been left out of a good life. The New Zealanders who are blocked from going to university, from having a job, because we demand structural unemployment. There has to be those on the bottom, the underclass that John Key talks about. It's a requirement in our economy and in our society. So yes, students are the lucky ones, but not because of the good grace of Bill English, but because they're not as bad off as those Kiwis we make suffer every day, so that we can have cheap stilettos and Kirks. There are other changes in the tertiary sector which mean that students, prospective students, are blocked from getting this chance at a better job and improving our economy. The changes to the tertiary incentive allowance a few years ago by Paula Bennett, sweeping the ladder up from beneath her. Changes like that mean that working class Kiwis can't get into tertiary education and they can't get a fair go. Concerningly, for an internationalised economy, they can't retrain after years. There simply isn't the money, there isn't the capacity. If we're serious about having a 21st century economy, we've got to fund people's ability to get into education. It's crucial. Perhaps we should have a Kiwi Skills fund like we do for KiwiSaver, so that people can tap in throughout their life to retrain if they're going to be regularly losing their jobs and having their industry out-modernised. If this is the reality of the new economy, then we've got to make sure that our people are secure and adapting to it. We haven't done that. We've left people in the cold. I want to turn briefly now to those people who have been left in the cold, who don't have the opportunity to come to university and to upskill, to be a part of the club that is working. Recently, David Sherritt talked about the social contract and how there's two sides of it. I would argue that one side of that contract, one negotiator, hasn't been at the table for 25 years. That there is no social contract on the side of the government. And that was seen recently with the budget, with changes to student allowances and student loans. That side of the deal hasn't been held up for years. So how can we expect those on the other side to keep their end of the deal? How can we expect beneficiaries to hold up their heads high with dignity and pride and hope of getting a better life for them and their children when we drug test them, when we force them to be dignified? We can't expect dignity from those we persecute. And so I would challenge us here to look beyond this frame we've been in for the last 25 years, to look beyond some of the neoliberal attitudes that are being espoused, and to actually ask, what is the real narrative here? Who is in the working club and the good life club, and who is not? And how do we unite people about changing that? How do we make people who are on the benefit and being persecuted realise they are in many ways in the same position as a student who is starving on baked beans and noodles? How do we make the worker who perhaps is on $60,000 a year realise that 5% effective wage cuts, or 3% as we saw recently, every year put them in the same position as the beneficiary of going backwards and not going forwards? And if that is the promise of the 21st century economy, that we'll go forward, that there'll be a better life, that we gave up security for a better deal, then let's honour it, and let's actually make sure we can all be in the club. Thank you.